What's going on? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Gen X Summer Vet here with a video from YouTube. As you've seen the title, well, read in the title, and you can see in the thumbnail, we have Stephen A. Smith. He's back on The View. They invited him back on to discuss some things he recently said regarding Senator Kelly telling soldiers to not follow illegal orders. So without further ado, let's get into this video.
Talk to you about the bombing, my friend, and some things that you recently said. You know, I like you, right? Okay, so you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line for participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders. Okay. Let's see some of what you said, my friend.
Sure. You know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? You could go to the House. You can draw up paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before. You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you? Got us behind back in the White House. Had you left him alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander-in-chief. You don't do that.
He's right as far as that black and white, going on. You can't tell soldiers, whether you're retired, a veteran, whatever, civilian, you can't tell soldiers that are actively in the military, they're actively performing their duties as a military service member. You can't tell them to disobey orders. No matter if you agree with them or not, you can't tell them to, soldiers, go out there and disobey the orders of your company commander, battalion commander, brigade commander, division commander, post commander, all up to the commander-in-chief. You can't do that. Soldiers know, we have this instilled in us from basic training, what lawful, ethical, and morals are, especially immorals, unethical, and illegal orders. We know the difference. So an illegal order could be something like, soldier, go slap that person in the face. Unethical, immoral, illegal. Another one, soldier, take your saw or squad automatic machine gun and go mow down people at the Walmart parking lot. You can't do that. That's a crime. Illegal. No matter what state or part of the U.S. you're in. That's illegal orders, whether you're in the military or not. That's a crime. So yeah, again, we know the difference between illegal, unethical, and immoral orders. So what Trump has put out, saying that soldiers, I'm going to deploy National Guard guys here. They're going to protect ICE agents and federal agents so they can do their job more effectively. He didn't federalize them as, police force. They're out there as a protection force only of government assets. That's it. They can't go out and arrest people. They can't put people in hand irons. They can't tackle people. They can't apprehend people. They can't do that. Unless, again, it's an insurrection going on. So, and also with the whole bombing of the the little boats coming across, just carrying drugs and cartel members, when he tells, the soldiers to, destroy that because they're coming into our country illegally, trying to do this type of crime and stuff under the radar. Those are lawful orders, especially if they have the intel to back it up. He's put out, don't do this. We're not going to do this anymore in our country. And you still have countries, other countries, foreign agencies trying to come in and do shit like that. So yeah, he's well within his right, his power to get that shit done.
Caffeine's a bitch,
Now let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief.
Okay, this is something that he said in 2016. It does give the context behind what he said, other than soldiers should not go follow illegal orders. Soldiers should follow legal orders. We don't know what was said prior to that. So she's stating something right now. She's trying to conflate different things to, confuse people. That's what they do in The View. A lot of their talking points are stupid. And a lot of things that they say were debunked. That's why they always got to do, we have a legal note. We have this. We can't, they get hit up with that stuff all the time because they try to do shady shit. And then, the audience clapping the background, that's a little prompt. They, applaud now, that's what they're doing. So they're doing what they're supposed to do as far as the audience. But she thought she was cooking with that. She wasn't.
Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
See, you want to stay loud and wrong? A lot of men, they experience this with women. If they have an opinion about something, they stand on it. Oh, so you're wrong. Why? Because it's my opinion. I feel this way. But it's okay when they do it. But when men, I state the opinion, that's what I'm going to stand on. Oh, you're wrong. Why? And then it's up to you to refute what I just said. My opinion, that's how I feel about it. Let me know your feelings about it. You can feel your way, I can feel my way. What makes my opinion wrong compared to your opinion? Just because how you feel about it? Because you don't like it? Because you don't like the person who said it? You don't like their ethics, their morals? So yeah, that's where we are as far as, Stephen A. Smith. He's standing on business. I said this. Although I don't always agree with a lot of things that he says, especially with sports and certain things he says on his podcast and when he was with, ESPN and all that other shit. He's one of those guys who he's on one side of the fence and he's on the other side. He's constantly trying to stay towards the middle. He's trying to be neutral. And a lot of times you can't be neutral. If you're going to say something, you need to stay on it, not keep being a habitual line stepper. You're like from Rick Jane, the whole Dave Chappelle thing. He's a habitual fence jumper. Back and forth, back and forth. He can never stay on one side. So that's why a lot of people have issues with him, because he'd be one way one time, then he'd be another way a different time. And we're like, what the fuck?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
Okay.
Here's the reality of the situation. First of all, I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say, because I will tell you right now, he was never qualified for the job. When you talk about DEI and eradicating that, excuse me, what was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary?
He was in the military. He served his country. He done things, officer, enlisted, all that other shit. So he's got the experience. So he knows what he's talking about. It may not be to your standard, or may not be to other people's standard, but that qualifies him just as much as President Trump was qualified to run for president. Pete Hegseth actually have military knowledge and experience backing him. So he was more qualified to join than President Trump was qualified to run for president. But the presidency is open to anybody, who wants to run for it. So, yeah, as long as you meet the criteria to be a U.S. president.
Please give me a break. I don't care what he has to say. Let me get that out the way. As it pertains to Mark Kelly, what I was talking about is military. What I did was get on the phone with family and friends who have served in the military. And I said, we're not civilians. This is not the court of law. You can be implicated for implying something if you are a former military member or you are a present military member. It wasn't what Mark Kelly said. It's the fact that he was a combat Navy pilot who served in the military, who would tell folks, ignore an order when it could get
Ignore
them
an
in a
illegal
world.
He did not say
I said
ignore.
illegal.
That's not what he
I said illegal. I'm talking about illegal. I understand that.
He said you don't have to follow an unlawful order, and that is in the military code of conduct.
And I'm saying,
No shit. You have to follow, also disobeying lawful orders, Article 92. I've written up numerous soldiers in the military, especially sergeants too, for disobeying lawful orders, Article 92. There's Article 90, disobeying an officer. There's Article 94, mutiny, sedition. So as a result of disobeying orders, especially from the POTUS, you could lose all your benefits, go to prison. They could destroy you. If orders come down, say my commander tells, tell your platoon to go do this, and it's an illegal order or an unlawful, unethical, or immoral order, and if I say, no, I'm not going to do that, he as an officer, the commander as an officer, can hit me up with, USMJ, all the other shit, for failure to obey orders from a superior officer. Yeah, they can do that. However, if it comes to find out that we know that these lawfuls are illegal, immoral, and unethical, I could be reinstated. Then that everything falls on that commander. So again, soldiers know the difference in the most part.
to you, hold on. which I'm aware of,
But it didn't sound like you were aware of that.
Well, no. I disagree with you. It
Stephen,
sounded
can
like
I ask you a question?
I had two governors, by the way, text me to tell me I was wrong, and they agree with you.
You are wrong.
I had two senators that reached out to me and said, you weren't wrong at all.
Well, Mikey Sherrill did say that the reason they felt the need to put that out is they were constantly being approached by people in the military saying, we're being put in really uncomfortable situations.
But
that to me is a little more relatable when you're a veteran yourself.
Okay, what she's talking about, most likely, like you said, that a lot of people will come into him or whoever saying that we're comfortable with certain orders we don't know. That's more likely a lower enlisted thing, because most officers, people with experience in the military, are going to know the difference. We could tell what's illegal, what's unethical, what's immoral. You know, a lot of people with no experience don't know how to deal with, chain of command. Everything is great to them. They don't understand until you get time in, then you can start knowing the difference between them, especially being a military policeman, because we have to deal with all the regulations. We have to deal with civilian and we have to deal with military. So we have to be very knowledgeable of the laws and stuff that happens on an installation.
But I'm saying let me say this real quick.
You gotta do real quick. Or wait till we come back.
All I'm saying is this. If you're a member of the military, I'm looking at the soldiers as saying, don't get yourself in trouble. Let somebody else do it. Don't you do it because it ain't gonna work for you.
But you get
Sorry, that was a list of slap kids.
It's pretty much what they're saying. Just don't get yourself hemmed up for not knowing the difference between orders. If you have a question about it, that's why we have an NCO support channels, all NCOs, not commissioned officers. We also have the chain of command, do all the way up to, company, battalion, brigade commander, to include the POTUS if need be. But yeah, it's just a lot of people from the outside looking in, specifically civilians, not knowing the shit that the military has to do as far as orders. They can only see what goes on. Okay, that's illegal. How do you know it's illegal? Just because you don't feel right about it? A lot of these military members that are have been in for as long as, say I have, they know the difference between unethical, immoral, and illegal. But that's my take on it. They tried to make him change his mind, change his opinion about it. He's still on business. No, you're not going to make me change my mind. I said what I said, and what are you going to do about it? Like I said, Kelly was wrong for saying that. Yeah, you could go and say it, but they're going to look at you like you can't do that. Even though you're a veteran, you were an astronaut, and now you're a senator, you can't go out and just undermine the president of the United States unless it's blatant, illegal activity going on. If you see the police out there saying stuff like, yes, I want the soldiers to go to each town and delete everybody, or each city and delete everybody. Yeah, that's a blatant illegal order. They can't do stuff like that. But he's not. He's going out there, he's doing everything within the limits of his power, that keeps him legal. So the reason is people may think that they're wrong. They may think that, they have feelings about certain things he's doing, but he's well within his right to do it. But that's my take on it. That's my opinion. Let me know your opinions and thoughts in the comments down below. Was Kelly wrong? Was he right? How you feel about Stephen A. Smith saying this, or The View for that matter? Comment down below. Let's get the conversation started. Hook a brother up. Like, share, subscribe to the notification bell. Give me a thumbs up to help me out. I'll catch you guys next video. Peace.